the rise and fall of BioWare. This time we're diving into the epic roller coaster story of BioWare, a studio that gave us some of the greatest CRPGs and RPGs in the gaming history, only to stumble into controversy and disappointment. From their humble beginnings to their golden age and all the way to their very downfall. This is the rise and fall of BioWare. If you're ready for this deep dive, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and let's jump in. The humble beginnings, Shattered Steel. Now let's rewind to 1995 in Edmonton, Canada. Three medical school grads, Ray Muzica, Greg Zechuk, and Augustine Yip, decided to ditch stethoscopes for keyboards. They love gaming, especially Dungeons and Dragons, and they founded BioWare with just 100,000 Canadian dollars. Their first game was The Shattered Steel in 1996. Shattered Steel was a mech-based action game where you piloted giant robots to fight alien machines. It wasn't a blockbuster, but it was a very solid debut back in the day. The game's destructible environments and tactical combat stood out in the mid-90s, earning praise for its polish and for the ambition. It sold modestly, but showed BioWare could deliver. This was just a warm-up, though BioWare was about to change RPGs forever. The RPG Revolution, Baldur's Gate series, and Neverwinter Nights. In 1998, BioWare dropped Baldur's Gate 1, and this was a game changer. One of the very first CRPGs in the history of mankind. Built on Dungeons and Dragons rule set, it brought the tabletop RPG experience to PCs with stunning detail. Baldur's Gate was a massive success because it nailed storytelling, companion characters with deep personalities, and choice-driven gameplay. You could be a noble hero or a total jerk, and the game reacted to your decisions. It sold over 2 million copies and became a cult classic. Why? Because it respected players' freedom and delivered a world that felt alive. Then came Baldur's Gate 2, Shadows of Amn, in 2000. This wasn't just a sequel, it was a masterpiece, a game for all times, probably the best game of the decade. Deeper stories, better graphics, and companions like Minsk and his hamster Boo became iconic for that time. It's still considered one of the best CRPGs ever, with 95 out of 100 score on Metacritic till this day. BioWare was now the king of story-driven RPGs. Should I also mention how their engine got used by Black Isle Studios that later became Obsidian, and they used their engine for the games like Planescape Torment, Icewind Dale, where Josh Sawyer himself was the lead designer on those games. The impact of Baldur's Gate 2 was huge. In 2002, BioWare made history again with first 3D CRPG called Neverwinter Nights. Again, we're witnessing pure innovation by BioWare, absolutely insane in only 5-year span. It brought Dungeons and Dragons into a fully 3D world with a robust campaign and a game changer, the Aurora tool set. This let players create their own adventures, sparking a modding community that's still active even today. Neverwinter Nights sold over 2 million copies and proved BioWare could innovate while staying true to their CRPG roots. The Golden Age, MDK2, Knights of the Old Republic, and Jade Empire. The 2000s were BioWare's golden age, or should I say, the 2000s till 2010 was the age of BioWare. They were untouchable, pumping out hit after hit. Now let's talk MDK2 first, released in 2000. MDK2 was a third-person shooter with a wacky sci-fi vibe. You played as Kurt Hectic, a janitor-turned-hero, alongside a six-legged dog and a mad scientist. It was humor, tight gameplay, and vibrant visuals, and it made it a hit. While not as massive as their RPGs, it showed BioWare's versatility and it sold well enough to keep the studio buzzing. Then, in 2003, BioWare took on a galaxy far, far away with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, or KotOR. And holy shit, this game was epic. Set thousands of years before the movies, it lets you choose to be a Jedi or a Sith. With a story so good, it's still considered canon in Star Wars lore. The branching dialogue, moral choices, and companions like HK-47 made it a phenomenon. It sold over 3 million copies and won Game of the Year awards left and right. BioWare proved they could handle a massive IP and make it their own. In 2005, BioWare tried something bold with Jade Empire, a martial arts RPG inspired by Chinese mythology. It had a unique setting, fluid combat, and BioWare's signature choice-driven story. While it didn't sell as well as KotOR, it was praised for its originality and built a loyal fanbase. BioWare was on fire, experimenting and delivering quality every single time. The mid-ages, Mass Effect 1 and Dragon Age Origins. By the late 2000s, BioWare was acquired by EA in 2007 for $860 million. I don't know if I should repeat that number again. That was back in 2007. That's a lot of money for 2007. And this gave them more resources, but also it gave them a lot more of a pressure. Still, they kicked off this era with two absolute bangers that would be Mass Effect and Dragon Age Origins, probably their two greatest games. Again, innovation, again, brilliance from BioWare, even under the foot of EA. Mass Effect in 2007 was a sci-fi epic. You played as a Commander Shepard, saving the galaxy with a crew of unforgettable characters like Garrus and Liara. Its cinematic storytelling, deep world building, and choice system where decisions carried across sequels blew players away. Despite some clunky combat, it sold over 2 million copies and laid the foundation for a legendary trilogy. In 2009 comes probably BioWare's best game ever created. Dragon Age Origins brought BioWare back to the fantasy. This dark, gritty CRPG lets you play as a Grave Warden fighting a demonic blight. What would be Game of Thrones for TV shows and Lord of the Rings for movies, that's what's Dragon Age Origins in video games, literally. Its deep lore, tactical combat, and morally great choices were a hit, selling over 4 million copies in a year. Fans loved its return to Baldur's Gate style depth. BioWare was still at the top of their game, but cracks were starting to show. The start of the downfall, Dragon Age 2 and Star Wars The Old Republic. And now we enter the early 2010s, where things started to wobble. EA's influence grew, and BioWare faced tighter deadlines and higher expectations. Let's talk Dragon Age 2 and Star Wars The Old Republic. Dragon Age 2 in 2011 was rushed out in just 18 months. It was also made for consoles only, a complete disaster. It followed Hawk in a single city, Kirkwall, with a more action-focused combat system. Everything was stupefied and dumbed down so everyone could play the game, but what BioWare did back then is that they lost their faithful audience. And this is the start of their downfall, Dragon Age 2. While the story and characters were very solid, fans hated the repetitive environments and simplified mechanics. Unfortunately, it felt like a full step back from Origins. Sales were decent at around 2 million on Old Glory, but the fan backlash was loud. Metacritic user scores dropped to the 4s. BioWare was starting to lose trust, a gaming company that gave us at least 10 to 15 legendary games. Then came Star Wars: The Old Republic in 2012, an ambitious MMO set in KotOR universe. Again, they wanted to earn money on Old Glory. EA foot can be felt cause it stinks even today. The story and voice acting were top notch, classic BioWare, but the MMO market was tough and its subscription model turned players off. EA wanted to copy the success of Blizzard's World of Warcraft, and BioWare was just not ready for something like that. It costed over 200 million to develop one of the most expensive games ever in that time. And while it hit 2 million subscribers early, many left when it went free to play. It was profitable eventually, but the hype didn't match the reality, the game died fast, and BioWare's reputation took another hit. The Deepening Fall, Mass Effect 3, and Dragon Age Inquisition. By the mid-2010s, BioWare was struggling to balance fan expectations with EA's demands. Mass Effect 3 and Dragon Age Inquisition showed both their brilliance and their flaws at the same time. Mass Effect 3 in 2012 was supposed to be the trilogy's grand finale. The gameplay was polished, the story was emotional, but the ending, well, it sparked rage like no other game in the existence of mankind. Fans felt the choices they made across all of their 3 games didn't matter enough, leading to petitions and an extending ending DLC. Mass Effect 3 was a success, it sold over 6 million copies, but the controversy left another scar in BioWare. That's already a 3rd scar now on already wounded beast. BioWare's storytelling magic wasn't shining as bright anymore. You could feel that new faces took the lead in BioWare, and this wasn't the BioWare we all loved. We go even deeper now with Dragon Age Inquisition in 2014, the BioWare's comeback attempt, but the political agenda started even then. A little wokeism entered the dear Dragon Age Inquisition. Again, even though it was success in terms of sales and the Old Glory felt very wrong, especially when you look at it today. Dragon Age Inquisition won Game of the Year, but that was a very bad year as well. It had a great open world and improved visuals, but a lot of fans felt that the open world fetch quests diluted the story and it lacked the depth of Origins. It sold well over 5 million copies, but a mixed reception showed BioWare was struggling to please everyone under EA's boot. The Disaster and Downfall, Andromeda, Anthem, and the Veilguard. And now we hit the rock bottom. The late 2010s and early 2020s were brutal for BioWare. Let's talk Mass Effect Andromeda, Anthem, and Dragon Age the Veilguard as the final nail in the coffin for many fans. Mass Effect Andromeda in 2017 was a complete disaster. A new galaxy, new characters, no Shepard, none of those old NPCs that we all loved from Mass Effect, completely rushed development, and what we got is broken animations, lifeless writing, and bugs galore. Fans mocked the tired face memes and it scored 7 out of 10 on Metacritic, BioWare lowest ever. The game was basically a meme, a mockery. EA pulled support and BioWare lost more credibility. Fans were done. Finally, Dragon Age The Veilguard in 2024. After years of development hell, fans hoped for a return to form. We get new Dragon Age. It's gonna be a great CRPG, right? Well, no. Instead, it got slammed for its action-heavy gameplay and stupefied, lighter tone, complete wokeism, feeling like a departure from Dragon's Age dark roots. Our dear Dragon Age became purple instead of dark. Early reviews were mixed, some praised the combat, but most of the people just straight up hated Veilguard. A lot of them felt like it was a flat betrayal of the series, and it was, but it's not a betrayal because BioWare at this moment only exists in name. Not a single one of old developers remained in BioWare. Complete failure with sales as well. This is the very first time that BioWare could not sell their game, even though they could sell previous flops. This time fans learned and no one bought Veilguard. The fan backlash on X and forums and Reddit was deafening. For many, this was BioWare's final fall and there is no turning back from this abyss. What happened and what is next? So what went wrong? The EA's acquisition brought money but also crunch, rushed timelines, and a push for live service games that didn't fit BioWare's strengths. Key founders like Musica and Zachuk left by 2012, mind you, so they left 13 years ago, and talent just drained over time. They got replaced by, I can't even call them developers anymore. I don't want to use names right now, let's just remain at not very good devs. BioWare's focus shifted from deep RPGs to broader trend-chasing games, alienating their core fans to the max. But is BioWare done? Not quite. They're working on a new Mass Effect and possibly more of the Dragon Age. I don't know what to say. If they can rediscover their storytelling magic and listen to fans, maybe, just maybe, they can rise again. The chances are around 0.1%, while 99.9% chance is that BioWare will shut down till the end of 2030. And that would be the epic and sad story of BioWare's rise and fall. If you enjoyed this deep dive, give a like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more gaming history. What studio would you like me to cover next? What video you wanna hear about the rise and fall? Until the next time, keep gaming and see ya in the next video.